common network security term. Before going in deep, we need to know some basic terminologies which is related to network security like assets, vulnerability, exploit, threat, attack, risk, and countermeasure. What is asset? Asset is anything which an organization is investing either is valuable to organization and organization own them. So this is called assets. And every organization has different assets. That can be a property, it can be a vehicle, it can be a car, it can be a heavy equipment, it can be a plant, building, employee, computer, data, whatever. Every organization has different assets. And that's what we are there to protect those assets. So assets is anything which organization invest on them and which is valuable for the organization. And I give an example like a car, furniture, machine, laptop, and so on, so many things. This is called assets. Second is vulnerability. What is vulnerability? Weaknesses. Weaknesses in system and design, services, protocol. It can be in anything, operating system and application. And we will discuss vulnerability in detail in this course. Normally, I discuss this in vulnerability in two short word way, but here we have many stuff related to vulnerability. And also there is a vulnerability database as well, which we call them CVE database. You have to a common vulnerability and exposes. This is a website of database of vulnerability which update every second maybe and every whenever there is a vulnerability in firewall, vulnerability in router, switches all over the world. So you will find of them here. Vulnerability, any weaknesses in anything. If somebody found, even though there is another website, whenever you find any vulnerability, you submit them, they will pay you as well. Like you find a vulnerability in router, vulnerability in system, vulnerability in window, and you can search here as well. Any vulnerability, like in F5, last year in F5 there was in 2 weeks before there was vulnerability in big IPS and there was vulnerability release. And when we saw here, they will send you an email as well, by the way, if you are working in company. But anyway, you can regularly visit here to find out the vulnerabilities whenever there is a vulnerability. And this is the solution. They say update your F5 load balancer, and there was they introduce a patches. So now coming to vulnerability, vulnerability means where there weakness in a system, services, protocol, application, operating system, and even in network design, we call them vulnerability. It can be a human error, and it can be by mistake, and it can be deliberately, and it can be left deliberately. Maybe it also like this. In house, whenever they are making house, so they left some hole so they can work quickly in those house. Then when the house is completed, so what they do, they then at the end they protect that hole. The same thing when the application, they design an application operating system, so they left some hole at the end, they then sometime they forgot to protect that hole. So this also vulnerability. And vulnerability can be anything by nature as well. And then we have exploit. So the attacker use method to exploit these weaknesses. They are using many tool and method to attack and use those vulnerability to damage your network and system services and application. This is called exploit. Let me show you. Normally I give this example to these students. Suppose let me go here and take one router, and let me take one switch from here. Okay, and let me take, by the way, one system and one router, by the way. Yeah, it's okay, one system is enough. WebTerm, let me take WebTerm. Okay, and let me connect this one to here. and here, and let me on. Even though it was to be used to connect directly, it's okay. But before on this one, let me assign IP address quickly here. Let me go to edit configuration, and it's better assign the same IP. Let me 0/2 is the IP, okay. Let me stop this one and start because I changed the IP to has to be restart again. This is a Docker, okay. And let me assign here IP address to this router. Same range 0/2. So let me go to config interface E0/0 IP address 192.168.0.1 no shutdown, and IP HTTP server and IP HTTP and line VTY 0 to 4 transport input all, okay, and password is 123 login. Basically I enable show, okay, I enable HTTP and enable telnet on this router. So IP HTTP authentication local, and let me create username admin, privilege 15 and password 123. So basically I create one local user and I enable HTTP server on this router and I enable telnet on this router. Now let me right click on here and capture the packet using Wireshark. And from here I will access this router through telnet and HTTP. And then I will show you what does it mean by vulnerability. Vulnerability in protocol and vulnerability in system. So let them start, and till that time let me open this Docker. Okay, and let me type the IP 192.168.0/1 which we assigned to the R1, this router. Yeah, I started, and let me access them. Admin and 123. So I access this router through HTTP, and let me do telnet as well. Let me show you two protocol which they have vulnerability. Telnet and 192.168.0/1. You password I set 123. And now I'm logging through telnet, and now let's go. First let's check HTTP here. So in HTTP there is HTTP hypertext transfer protocol which use port number 80, and by nature is not secure protocol. So let me show you the password. Authorization, so authorization is here, this the password. It's a credential is admin and 123. This what I use to log in HTTP. And also you can right click and follow HTTP stream to see from here as well. And this the website which I show diagnostic logs and all those details. So I log in, this the header, Cisco Unix R1, this one, accessing Cisco Unix. So everything is visible here. This is the detail, and username and password is also visible there, and also it's visible here. Another protocol I use telnet. Right click on telnet, and if I say follow TCP stream, so look at this the password 123 when I use and login. So it's everything is visible. So by nature HTTP and telnet has vulnerability. This is called vulnerability, weaknesses in the system. So this is by nature in this protocol there is vulnerability. And we use exploit means we use Wireshark. So in this case Wireshark is exploit. This is the method and technique which I use to find out the password of HTTP and telnet. So in this attack Wireshark is exploit method and techniques and tool. Now I know the username and password, I can attack those two systems to access the detail. This is called exploit. Now threat. Threat can be defined as anything dangerous to your asset, asset we just discussed. It can be accidentally, it can be intentionally. To down your services, to harm your system, to damage your system, to down your system. So we call it threat. It can be spyware, it can be hacker, it can be virus, it can be keylogger, it can be Trojan, it can be anything. Any method to use to down your service application and network, we call them threat. Attack means the action which you take to damage the assets is called attack. Risk. Potential loss to your assets, we call them risk. And always there is a risk involved. So those potential loss and compromise and destruction, we call them risk. And last but not the least is countermeasure. What is countermeasure? Countermeasure is the technique and action and procedure to protect the thread, and thread which we just discussed. Thread is a dangers which is to your assets. It can be anything. It can be vulnerability as well. So now in this case, I'm using two protocol, which is danger to my assets, which is vulnerable. So what is countermeasure? So countermeasure is why not to configure IP HTTP secure server. So I protect my system now. This is called countermeasure. And instead of telnet, I would say IP domain name test and crypto key generate RSA 1024, sorry, modulus 1024, and let me generate the key and enable SSH. IP SSH version 2 more secure rather than version 1 is also vulnerability. And line VTY 0 to 4 transport input SSH only and login local. This is the countermeasure. Now let's do the test again. Instead of HTTP, this time I will access them HTTPS. Enter. And it's asking the certificate, it's okay. And I would say accept the risk and continue. Admin and 123. This time I access them through HTTP. And here instead of telnet, I will use SSL. Sorry, SSH. Anyway, it's coming. So let's go there. And this time I would say show me the traffic TLS. Either so this is the TLS now. This is the application data. If I say follow TLS stream, you will find nothing. And it will be our garbage data. This is the garbage data, which I just told you. This is the encrypted data, encryption, confidentiality. This is the confidentiality. I can understand nothing. And the same case will be with SSH. If I log in through SSH here, this is called countermeasure. So altogether, common security term which we discuss: asset vulnerability, exploit, threat, attack, risk, and countermeasure. This like a circle, and this is a competition between the hacker and security engineers. And in competition, sometime you will win, and sometime they will win. But security is not a one-time job to protect, and just you install firewall and IPS and IDS and you say I'm done. And then you will set aside that my everything is protected. No. There is always vulnerability. And a hacker will exploit that vulnerability and it's a risk for you. And they will attack. So it means there is always threat there, which vulnerability will be exposed and your devices and service application will be under risk. Now you have to protect them, and this is called countermeasure to protect your asset not to be compromised by threat. And again a circle. So it's a competition between hacker and you. So these are some common security term which we discuss.